Birds fans, it is a championship week football Friday. Doesn't get any better than this. Oh, unless, of course, we're doing a show 2 weeks from now and talking about the Eagles in the Super Bowl. But we need to get there first. We need to get 2 hours of good Eagle conversation in with you here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. John McMullen Jody McDonald, a.k.a. Mac a Mac. We've got half a Mac a Mac today. Johnny Mac's got to run over to the NovaCare complex for his last media session before the big game. So we get Double B, Barrett Brooks, in here in hour number 2. You were over there yesterday. You're going to be over there again today. I guess the highlight of yesterday, not only did Avonte Maddox participate in practice, he looked pretty good out there on the field, didn't he, Johnny Mac?
Yeah, he did. Looked like he was full speed. Looked like he wasn't having any issues, and that's a big get back for a big game. So I think it's really important. We'll see. He wouldn't confirm he was going to play. Obviously, you know how the Eagles are with these types of situations, but hey, I mean, there's no reason he shouldn't play. I think it would be really bold to say, oh, let's give him another couple weeks for the Super Bowl. All hands on deck if you can play in this type of game. So I would expect to see Avonte Maddox out there. Wouldn't surprise me if the Eagles say questionable on the final injury report, which will be out this afternoon. But who knows? We might show up and Nick says, "Yep, he's a go. He's going to play."
You never know, right?
You never know. You never know. But
Well,
I think he's going to play. I
the
think he's
Eagles
going to
do
play.
like that competitive advantage, however long they think they can keep it, which means they'll probably hold off till Sunday when the activated players will be named. But off what he looked like yesterday, looks like he's going to be in the mix. It's a tough thing to come back from any injury after being off. We talk all the time on this show, on others, wherever, about the debate between rest and rust and how you balance the two, and which any chance there's some rust on Avonte Maddox because he hasn't played in more than a month?
Yeah, there's a chance. I mean, December 24th is when he got injured, Christmas Eve in Dallas. So, there's a chance. But I think you weigh the risk benefit and what's the option. The other option is they've kind of whittled it down to having CJ Gardner Johnson play that sort of hybrid role, and then put Reed Blankenship in at safety when he's playing slot corner, which I think the CJ part of that is fine. I think Reed Blankenship has played well, but I don't think there's any world you would say, well, I'd rather have Reed Blankenship on the field than Avonte Maddox. So, and I think, the fact that Avonte Maddox and CJ Gardner Johnson can both toggle back and forth from the slot and safety, I think that gives Jonathan Gannon an extra card against a very young quarterback. So you can start playing games, and I don't think it would matter against a Tom Brady or somebody like that if they were in that game. He's not going to be fooled, but I think you could fool a young quarterback, and if he thinks, Avonte Maddox is playing slot corner, and all of a sudden, right before the snap, Avonte races back, CJ plays the slot, or vice versa. I think that could be a competitive advantage that you wouldn't have with a Reed Blankenship, who when he's in the game, he's going to play safety. It's just a matter of post safety or if he's in the box. So, yeah, I mean, he's a better player, and you want your better players on the field.
Agreed. And another reason why, at least for me, this is a stone cold key is, John, I just have the feeling that this game may very well be decided by who gets the big turnover. These two teams are so evenly matched. Advantage Eagles because it's in their house, and the leather lung fans will be there from the get-go straight through to the final whistle. And yes, that is going to make it more difficult on Brock Purdy, but it may come down to who makes either the big mistake or the big play. Just perfect read on a pass, tip it up in the air. Somebody else gets their hands on it. These are two teams that have been plus all year long in the plus minus category. The 49ers finished up as number 1. The Eagles finished up as number 3. Why do I get the feeling that whoever gets the big turnover, whoever's the plus in the plus minus category for this game, is going to win this game?
I mean, that's all the Eagles talk about, right? They talk about, two categories, turnovers and explosive plays. So, they believe it as well. If you win those two categories, you're probably going to win the game. And it turns out that, well over 90% of the time that is correct. So, yeah, I mean, especially these are the two most well-rounded teams in football. These two teams are more well-rounded than the AFC teams. They're very good. There's only two teams that have a top 5 offense and a top 5 defense. They're playing Sunday at Lincoln Financial Field. That sums it up. They're both really good on both sides of the football. So, yeah, the team that plays the cleaner game is probably going to win the game. And I like the Eagles' chances there, even though, as you pointed out, San Francisco is number one. They're number one when it comes to turnover ratio. But, Jalen Hurts has proven throughout this entire season he's going to take care of the football. And, young quarterback in the Roman Coliseum, which I think, that place is going to be amped up, to say the least. Common sense would say there might be more issues. Yeah, from the communication aspect too. Even if you want to take away the youth of the quarterback and the inexperience of the quarterback, San Francisco is the team that's got to communicate in the loud environment. Now, sometimes, and the Eagles have tried to get this across this week, by the way, Jody, if any fans are watching and thinking, when the Eagles offense has the ball, calm down, lower the volume, because they had to go a few times to silent counts because it was so loud against the Giants. And they want to let people know, all right, when we have the ball, just temper it a little bit so we can communicate.
But they're amped up enough that it does bleed over a little bit.
Yeah.
It could
go
very well
count. Yeah.
Could very well affect the Eagles. We'll have to see about that. All right. Here's another question I have for you before we get up our first guest. We got two good ones coming for you today. Mike Sealski, lead sports columnist for the Philadelphia Inquirer, is going to get in here in hour number 1, about 10 minutes from now. And then in hour 2, Jason Dumas is going to join us. He's the sports anchor for KRON, Channel 4 out in San Francisco. So he's reporting about the 49ers. He's a Philly guy. He's been a Philly guy all his life who's moved out to the West Coast, still comes back here to go to the Jersey and Delaware shores during the summer. So we're going to have to get him on record as to we won't tell anybody who he's actually rooting for. But Jason's going to join us in hour number 2. Get up pretty damn early to do so from San Francisco. Another key aspect to this game, Johnny Mac, I think is going to be the Eagles' ability to run the football. You've watched every single game they played this year, and I think it's pretty simple to say the Eagles are at their best when they're balanced, when they're both running and throwing the football. We like to make a lot about run-pass ratio here in this town and the dominant aspect of physicality and winning the battle in the trenches and dictating your will to the other team, which is all nice and accurate. But the National Football also in 2023 is a passing league. The days of just running it down other teams' throats are night. When you have a mismatch like the Eagles' offensive line against the Giants' defense last week, yeah, you can do that and run for 260 yards. Guess what? I'm taking the under 260 for the Eagles rushing this week against that 49er defense. Not happening the same way it did last week, which means it's going to need to be, if the Eagles are going to win, a balanced offense. They're going to have to both run it and throw it. I have faith that Jalen Hurts is going to make some plays down the field. The Eagles' 3 stud receivers, including Dallas Goedert, they're not going to get shut out. They're going to make some plays. Can the Eagles run the football against this 49er defense to be a balanced team?
I think they can. I think they can run it against anybody, to be honest. Now, you're right. I'm going under 260 if that were going to place the over-under. San Francisco gives up, I think, 77 yards a game or something like that on the ground. I think they're going over that.
Over 77?
Yeah.
All right.
So, the question is, where in the middle do they get? If they're at 125, 130, 140, I think you're fine. If they're at 90, 95, I don't think you're fine. So I think that's sort of the battle. Yeah, but the Eagles' running game is different than everybody else. So when you say, because of the +1, not everybody, because obviously there's certain teams, Chicago, but they're not a good football team. Baltimore, when Lamar Jackson is healthy, the +1 makes the difference because it becomes a math equation, like all of sports has become, and you can't account for it. That's why they say +1. You can't account for Jalen Hurts in the running game. In traditional, gap schemes, what everybody plays, everybody's got a gap, and all of a sudden there's an extra guy, and here he comes, and he's got the ability to run the football like Jalen Hurts. So we've already seen everything's back on the table from the Giants game. Now, we didn't necessarily see the effectiveness of it because, well, it wasn't needed in from the quarterback. And maybe it's needed here, maybe it isn't. But I do think the Eagles create problems. So, in other words, what I'm trying to say is people say, well, San Francisco only gives up 77 yards. Well, the majority of their games are against traditional teams that don't have that +1. So it changes. You automatically pump it up 30 yards, something like that. And that to me becomes the demarcation line of, how good is the running game? And then the ratio, as you point out, and I say all the time, look, if the Eagles are up 2 touchdowns in the second half, the ratio is going to look phenomenal. If they're down 10 points, the ratio, people are going to be complaining about it on Monday. What are you throwing the football for? Well, we're losing. We're trying to catch up and make you happy. So that's what the modern NFL is. You pass to get the lead, you run to close the game, and that's what the Eagles always want to do. Always, always, always want to do.
And last week, Kenny Gainwell had the probably best game of his career. Some of it came late, but Gainwell made big plays in the first half as well. I don't want to say it was all by the way stats that he put up in the second half. But you still expect Miles to be the number one guy, right?
Oh,
When the day
God,
is over
yeah.
and done with.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even a debate. I mean, Nick Sirianni said that from day one, when back in training camp, there were a couple days where Miles was taking second team reps and he got upset about it. And he got upset about it, which he shouldn't have.
That was a big deal for
It was just
24
factual.
hours.
It was factually correct, but the Eagles were just rotating in their backs, and sometimes the rotation up front or a quarterback is different from the rotation of the back. So you're just kind of running people through. When he said that day, Miles is our guy, Miles is our guy, Miles is our guy. And Miles is their guy. I mean, Kenny Gainwell's the third down back and a hurry up back. So that's his role. That's his role. Now, in the second half against the Giants, yeah, it was a lot of, oh, by the way, statistics. It wasn't important. The game was over. But yeah, I mean, they're not gonna lean on Kenny Gainwell. Miles is gonna be the guy. Miles is the guy, and but Miles has not, been that third down back that you can count on. And by the way, that's not as important as it is for most teams. Like Christian McCaffrey on the other side, he's got his injury issues, but he said he's going to play, no doubt about it. He's a phenomenal pass catcher out of the backfield. Talked about this a lot when Kenny Gainwell was coming out of college. Everybody's, well, this guy's a great natural receiver. He actually is. You haven't really seen it because Jalen doesn't use outlet receivers that much, and he doesn't need to because he's going to pick up 15 yards. And maybe if you dump it off to the running back, he gets 7 or 8. So he doesn't do it that much as, a Brock Purdy will do, or even more so a pocket passer that doesn't have a lot of mobility. They're just going to dump it off to the back. And those are the guys that get big catches and big yardage. With the Eagles, it's not as important. Now, the hurry up portion is, and I've debated, let's at least try to give Miles Sanders some more opportunities in that type of role, but they haven't done it all season. They're not going to do it now. So they have, clearly defined roles.
Don't bank on the Miles 6-catch game. That's not coming. And oh, by the way, another thing, sorry to say, Eagle fans, not coming. I know he scored touchdowns in the last 2 games, but Boston Scott scores his touchdowns against the Giants. This is the 49er defense. I don't think I'd be playing the anytime Boston Scott touchdown. You made money on it. You made bank on it the last 2 weeks. Keep it or use it elsewhere on the Eagles 49ers. If Boston Scott scores a touchdown, we'll be here on Birds 365. It will be my pleasure to eat some crow. Yeah, I don't think Boston Scott's getting into the end zone. He's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. We are the Mac and Mac guys here on Birds 365. Coming up next, we're going to talk to Mike Sealski, lead sports columnist for the Philadelphia Inquirer, get his thoughts on the game Sunday between the 49ers and the Eagles. It's going to be a great one, and we're talking about it here on Birds 365.